Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Sabrina with student number 2002010087. Come back again with me with subject English and Intercultural Communication. Okay, without any further ado, let's start. Culture teaching. Theories on culture teaching. Byram has defined the notion of cultural studies in foreign language education and put forward a model for teaching foreign language and culture. According to him, foreign language education should include four fundamental components, namely language learning, language awareness, culture awareness, and cultural experience. Okay. By combining the use of learner first language and foreign language through comparative analysis and new cultural experience, Biram believes that will provide an integrative approach for teaching and learning language and culture. He shared Birch's view about cultural content as a prime motivator for language learning. According to Crumbs, the teaching of culture in foreign language has taken two main directions. One has focused on cultural information, statistical information, institutional structures, and facts of civilization, highbrow information. The classic of literature and arts, lowbrow information, the food fairs and folklore of everyday life, the author has been to situate culture within an interpretive framework, taken from cultural psychology or cultural anthropology, using universal categories of human behavior and procedure for making sense of foreign reality. By summarizing theories above, Sun Chen has put forward a proposal for developing Chinese foreign language, learning learners' cultural creativity as an attempt to search for a way through the difficulties. The practice of these proposals includes students encountering new knowledge and being exposed to new cultural experience which should be related to what is already known and experienced. The notion of cultural creativity has its foundation in the Chinese cultural context, although it draws from current Western thinking on language education. It aims to link knowledge and ability throughout the process of learning. It demands an understanding of how knowledge is the basis of ability, which in turn is the source on developing new knowledge, by focusing on learning to know, to do, and to interact. Cultivation of cultural awareness. Indeed, we can scarcely imagine learning a foreign language, say English, without acquaintance with the American dream, the lost generation, frontier, and so on. Undoubtedly, the belief that language teaching of linguistic knowledge has been dominant for a long period of time, even until recently. The students educated in this approach through possessing a good command of vocabulary and grammar turn out to be incompetent in actual communication. Too often we will find native speaker in embarrassment, confusion, even anger by questions like, "Where are you going? Have you eaten yet? How much is your salary?" and so on and so forth. Lack of cultural awareness proves to be a hindrance in foreign language learning. That is, the cultural knowledge directly associated with the target language is to be regarded as first and foremost in foreign language teaching. Aspects of culture involved are as follows. Firstly, customs. Customs refer to the habits and traditions formed in the daily life and communication of a speech community. Among them are greeting, addressing, gratitude, apologies, and departure, and so on. The Chinese usually greet each other by "Where are you going? Have you eaten yet? How much is your salary?" These greetings are intended to show their concern and intimacy. For example, however, the same greeting may well bring nothing but embarrassment and bewilderment to the Westerners. One thing we have to keep in mind is that the Westerners have a keen sense of privacy. As a result, resenting any trespass in this regard. In contrast, they usually greet each other by talking about the weather, such as morning, a fine day, and so on. The discrepancy of different nations in social system, custom, and ethics lead to that of addressing kinship terminology describing how people in various parts of the world refer to relatives by blood and marriage is a universal feature of language because kinship is so important in social organization. The Chinese, for instance, make a finer distinction of kinship. On the other hand, the Westerners possess a very limited scope of addressing their relatives such as grandpa, grandma, uncle, and aunt. Chinese people and the Westerners also differ in their way of visiting. The Chinese will usually pay a casual visit to their relatives or friends without informing them in advance. The Westerners, however, will habitually make a call beforehand to ensure that the host is convenient and ready for their visit. The Westerners will drop a hint that they are leaving about a quarter or 20 minutes before their real departure. Then the host sees him out, but only at the door. In contrast, in China, when one of the guests say it is getting late, he in fact is implying that the host, and the hostess need a rest. The other guests, on hearing this, will leave together with him, which will be considered abrupt and impolite by the Western people. In addition, the host and the hostess will often see the guests out at the gate and more often on the road. In fact, the Chinese culture and the Western culture are so different that it is difficult to make a detailed and complete list of the difference. It is worth noting that with the exchange of culture, the Chinese, especially the young, have begun to adopt some of the Western's way of dealing with people. For example, they will avoid questions such as "How old are you?" Secondly, psychology. People's psychology may differ in the sense that the values and moral theories vary from nation to nation. As is well known, individualism and equality are pursued in their nation. They care for frankness or a clear-cut stand of opinion. The Chinese, unlike them, value modesty and collectivism than individuality and rather than directness. Thirdly, historical background. The term historical background covers the historical development of culture and the accumulation of cultural ethics, such as in English, we have keep up with the Jones, John Bull, Uncle Sam, the last straw that breaks a camel's back. This kind of knowledge is directly related to some historical figures and even has to be learned specifically. Now that the necessities of teaching culture in foreign language and aspects involved in it have been discussed, a question occurred to us: what is the fundamental principle to be obeyed so as to eliminate as many barriers as possible on account of cultural difference? In short, there are three basic principles. Firstly, step-by-step principle. Developing students' cultural awareness should follow the basic sequence of from simplicity to complexity, from surface to depth. The teacher must be conscious of the general level of his students and constantly adjust to it the scope and depth of his cultural teaching. In this sense, we may call for a systematic program for cultural teaching. Secondly, appropriateness principle. In cultivating students' cultural awareness, we must bear in mind that the ultimate goal of teaching culture is to promote their linguistic knowledge and communicate competence. The teacher should strike a proper balance between linguistic teaching and culture teaching to avoid going to the other extreme of rigid teaching. Silakan, selamat datang. Mm-mm. Bisakah dicoba dulu? Baru aja habis juga kayak kemarin. Teachers should strike a proper balance between linguistic teaching and cultural teaching to avoid going to the other extreme of rejecting the teaching of linguistic knowledge. Wait a minute, I forgot. Do I zoom on the... Okay, no. Thirdly, as no culture covers a wide range including geographic, art, custom, history, and science, there are sub-branches under each culture. The teacher is to distinguish the mainstream from the less important and to introduce to the students the mainstream. Novel, books, and journals, the culture of a particular country is usually a good reflection of its culture. By reading the writing of a specific speaker community, the student at the same time of appreciating the masterpiece can also get familiar with custom cultural background reflected in the book. For instance, in Gone with the Wind, the student can get information of the American Civil War as well. Films, video, and other electronic aids. This means can present the custom and values of a culture to the student directly and impressively, and thus produce an unexpected effect by materializing the Western culture. Analysis and comparison. By analyzing and comparing different cultures, the student can get a further understanding of the target culture, which will without doubt promote their understanding and comment out competent communication in the target language. I think that's all from me. Thank you so much.